All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar with Yassin Aref, wrongfully prosecuted in a terrorism case and who's now free, and his two children, Alaa, who recently received her master's degree in English, and her brother Azzam, who is with his dad in Iraqi Kurdistan. Before we start, I want to announce that CCF, the Coronavirus Prisoner Release Project, has won a major victory today. We won the case of Sami Hassoun. He will be released and sent home to Lebanon. His attorney was Amit Gupta, who is one of our people, and I am very proud of Amit, and congratulations, and I'm so happy we won this victory. Thank you, Amit, and thank you, Judge. So now back to our regularly scheduled program. Meeting Yassin Aref changed my life. He and his co-defendant, Mohammed Hussein, were arrested back in 2004 in a ridiculous sting operation. I was at that time an attorney working for Terry Kinlan, who had the case. I knew there was something wrong with this case, but at that time my mom was dying of cancer, and so I didn't become super involved until 2006. And then I started working on it a lot, doing trial preparation and then the appeals. And we lost every step of the way based on false facts, the government violating the law, and violating the Constitution. This case really, really opened my eyes to what the government can get away with. A completely innocent man was railroaded, and no matter how we tried, and I'm not saying we were perfect, but there was nothing we could do about it. Not only was Yassin innocent, but when I got to know him, I learned that he was one of the most honest, bravest, most selfless people I had ever met. Many others also loved and trusted Yassin and were very upset about what was being done to him. Early on in 2004, when he was allowed to get bail after the government was caught lying about him, dozens of Muslim men, some risking FBI targeting, trooped down to the courthouse to put up the deeds to their homes as collateral, and Yassin was released. I gotta say, Albany Muslims never abandoned the defendants or their families, as has happened a lot elsewhere. And then after Yassin was released on bail, the government was really upset because they thought he was some bad guy, which they were totally wrong about. They came up with more lies to get him locked up again. When Yassin and Steve exposed those lies, the judge just said it didn't matter because the trial was coming soon. At the trial, there was almost no evidence against Yassin, but based on classified evidence we later could show was false, but which we were never allowed to see, the judge told the jury that the government had good and valid reasons for targeting Yassin, so they were afraid to acquit him despite the lack of evidence. He and Mohammed Hussein, who was only charged in order to get to Yassin, they were convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. And it definitely would have been 30 years or more were it not for the community support. Years later, Yassin did a FOIA request and learned that the FBI had thought he was somebody else, somebody who was killed in 2010. We filed a new motion, but that was completely ignored by the courts. After Yassin's conviction, Steve Downs convinced him to write a book about his life, and he did, and it's called Son of Mountains. It's an incredible memoir of Yassin's life as a Kurd under Saddam Hussein, living in Syria then as a refugee, and coming to the US as a refugee, thinking that now he was going to be free to speak his mind, and then getting caught up in this case. And maybe, Yassin, maybe you need to do an update to your memoir. Finally, Yassin finished his sentence in 2018, and then ICE locked him up. And we eventually had to file an immigration habeas petition before ICE finally, in June of 2019, a year ago, sent him home to Iraqi Kurdistan, where he is very popular. If you see his Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. Many people were very upset by what happened to Yassin and Mohammed, and we formed the Muslim Solidarity Committee and later Project Salam, which looked into other cases as well. We were founding members of the Coalition for Civil Freedoms 10 years ago. I need to mention the late Shamshad Ahmad, who was very involved in this case every step of the way, and he wrote a book about it called Rounded Up. I recommend that if you really want to know a lot about the case. I also want to give a shout out to Steve Downs, Gene Finley, and Lynn Jackson, among many others. Many of us remained appalled at what the government has done, but we are glad that it inspired us to study these cases and to organize against what the government's been doing. And we're also very glad that we became honorary family members, brothers and sisters to Yassin and aunties and uncles to the children, who are now adults. So, Yassin, first I want to hear your take on the case. We've been talking about it for years while you were in prison, and now you can talk about it. And I know you've been talking about it, but mostly in Kurdish. What would you like people to know about your case?
Who say I want to talk about my case? For me, it's over, and I don't want to talk about it, and I don't want to remember it anymore. I want to start the new life here and deal and struggle here for now. I really don't know what to say about that, because never make any sense to me from beginning, and still I doubt to say I understand what happened, how happened it. Even here, I have more hard time, because a lot of people here, they trust the America system and justice system there. So it is hard for them to believe that for no reason or from nowhere, they threw somebody to the prison for 15 years. Indeed, in this regard, there it was better that many people believe it, because they saw many other cases. They saw people, they spent 35, 40, 45 years in prison, and now thanks to DNA test, they found them innocent and they released them after 40, 45 years. So because of those cases and many other cases, so people there, they believe that there's sometimes something wrong with the system, or when they want to manipulate the system, they can't do that. But here, it's very hard for the people here, which is they died to get there, and they believe there it is perfectly, they have the system which is respect the human's dignity, human's life, and protect people's life. And after that, for them to believe somebody like me spent 15 years there in prison, it's harder to. So opposite of this, we have the people here which is kind of conspiracy minded. They believe everything is came from America, even this coronavirus. So I need always to talk to the people, even whatever is happening to me, that's I believe, and I have no doubt it was wrong and it was false and unfair. But does not mean which is there's no justice there, there's no system there, there's no rights there. Which is daily here I explain for the people that just because what happened to me, they should not hate that country or believe there's no rights there, or believe the situation there or the system there or the government there, it's just corrupt like any other places. I try to say, no, there's the difference. There it's much better. Then with everything is happened to us, and special after 9/11 to many Muslims, because I met many people, especially in the CMUs, which is, I believe there was political prisoner, and I believe they should not be there. But with that, I am here defending on America and on the system there, and I try to explain for the people, just sometimes something wrong, it will happen, doesn't matter where we are.
Okay, I'll just break in there and say that's really amazing that you're defending America after everything America has done to you. But I understand. You mentioned the CMU, that's the Communication Management Units that the Bureau of Prisons set up, and you were in 2 different CMUs, and I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about what it was like in the CMUs, and then what it was like after you got out of the CMU and you were in the general population in a couple different prisons. Just if you feel like talking about that a little bit.
Everything about the prison life, it will be the second book, which I'm writing right now in Kurdish, about 15 years in America's prisons. It's not about what happened and how happened and the trial, but about my life in the prison there. what I saw and how's the prison there, and what I went through and what's my family went through during these 15 years. Of course, the hardest part of it, it was the CMU, which is in CMU, in Terre Haute, first CMU for me. I was just, the book memory came out of Nelson Mandela, and I'm reading his memory, Long Way to Freedom. And then I'm trying to compare between what's happening in the Robben Island for Mandela and what we are going through. It just looked like the same system. They borrowed from there. It just looked like amazing. After all this year, the same thing happened in America, which is what they did for the Mandela and his friends, which is how they isolated them. And everything, it was just manipulated for one reason, to prevent these people from getting out or getting people, just that, nothing else. And I found out step by step what we are going through, especially the way males coming and going. It was the same way, I believe, which is it was in the Robben Island at that time. And anyway, anyone, he can read that book, which is Mandela wrote about Mandela, about his life in the prison there. And after that, they saw how they treated us in the CMU. I have no doubt you are going to find a lot of similarity there. So the CMU, it was just kind of isolation and done to break these people and to destroy their family and their communication with the outside. Of course, they claim that because some concern there, or they want to monitor the people, and I have no doubt is they have thousands of other ways to monitor and follow and watch the people, which is many other people in the regular prison or general population. They had been monitored for years without any problem. But the way they treated these few Arabs and Muslims there, it was just something hard to make any sense of it. But it was just to first break them, second to destroy their relation even with their family, and third, it is just kind of made them to have no access to the outside world whatsoever.
Well, I'm so glad you're writing that book, because I know Steve's been trying to get you to write that book, and I'm really glad you're doing it. And it's got to be translated into English too, so we can read it, and probably Arabic too, and maybe Spanish, lots of languages, but I'm really glad. And I should mention too that you are the lead plaintiff, or you were the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against the CMUs that's still going on, called Aref Beholder, brought by the Center for Constitutional Rights, because the CMUs were set up without any due process. And so hopefully eventually that case will either get them shut down or at least create some due process for people in those units. So Yassin, I guess one more question for you for now anyway, which is, or maybe a couple more, which is, what was it like coming home to Iraqi Kurdistan after being away for all those years? I know a lot changed there and a lot changed with you, I guess, although you're still the same person.
For me, there's no medicine. I'm not going to change. That's all this changes my beard and I got old, that's all. So I think you are very aware about the beginning, how the process started and how much hard it is and long it took. The other thing, it was about the concern when I arrived Baghdad, how they are going to treat me and what's going to happen there. So, but thank God, nothing happened, and very easy I came out of the airport in Baghdad and I came back to my hometown here, Chamchamal. And of course, Chamchamal, it is new city now and life change. And now I'm going to the city. It look like stranger here because most the people, especially the youth, is this new generation. I don't know them, and they was not there when I leave this country. And many things change in this country, even the culture to some extent it is changed and still changing and changing rapidly. And for somebody like me to pick up again and start new life here, it is very, very challenging now, very challenging. But I'm happy the situation in here compared to the time I left, especially economically, it's much better. And I'm happy there's many service in this time in this country. It was not there while I left in this country. I left during the Saddam's regime, which is where everything controlled by the government. At that time, there was not even the satellite here. There was no internet. There was no, of course, the social.
Whoops. Yassin's internet is not that great there.
Anything.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Now it's coming back. Try again.
Okay, so the point here, it is much better if we compare it from to that time, but still now there are a lot of other challenges, and unfortunately the main problem for us here in this country, which is Kurdish people, and our question about the freedom, about the independent, which is never answered, and still we have the same problem. Right now I'm talking to you, but the Turkish army invaded our lands, and they are fighting in some areas in Kurdistan. And at the same time, Iranian has been inviting this country for so long, which is especially ideologically and politically, which is they are controlling kind of everything in this country. And we are suffering from both sides, and from the Iraqi government, we have some problem. So it's a lot of problem besides this corona, and was another big damage to the economic here and everywhere else in the world. So this is problem, and this is the challenge, and this is the new situation I need to survive in. But I'm so happy at least I'm home, and I'm with my family and with my friends, and I am free, so I can go around, which is unfortunately after we came back, corona again locked everybody up, but I'm still going to the park and around the city here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're free too. And the other day we were trying to set this up, and Alaa sent you a message saying, "Are you free at 2:30 Friday New York time?" And you said, "Alaa, you know your dad is always free." Yes. One last question for you for now, which is, in addition to writing your book about the prison years, which I can't wait for, do you have other plans for your future right now? And I know you've been playing soccer too, which is nice, but you probably won't become a pro soccer player right now, although maybe. But what plans do you have for the future, if you want to say?
It's very hard for me, which is, I believe I need at least 2-3 years just for writing what I have in my mind. And indeed, I have about 2-3 books of poetry. I want to print them here. After that, I have the plan to translate Son of Mountain to the Kurdish, and then translate this when I write. I'm writing right now about life prison there to the English. So I'm thinking I'm going with these things, and I kind of busy myself with reading and writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot there for you to do. All right, I'm going to turn now to Alaa and ask you, Alaa, how you're 20-something now, you can say. I know you just got your master's degree in English, but how old were you when your dad was arrested, and what do you remember about that?
I'm 26. Oh, what's going on? Sorry. Is the sound okay? Or?
It's okay now, I think.
Okay. Is there an echo or is it good?
Yeah, do you have the Facebook open too? I did that one.
Going on. Sorry.
Try one more time, or else I'll send you it.
Okay, I'm gonna just.
All right, let me switch to Azzam for now. Azzam, can you unmute, and I'll ask you the same question? You were younger than Alaa, and say how old you are now, how old you were at the time, and what that was like, what you remember about it. You might not remember much. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I was 5 years old when my father was arrested, so I don't remember much, but I do remember waking up in the middle of the night and, you know, a bunch of FBI officers in our house, you know, raiding our house, and a bunch of, you know, black Chevy Tahoes outside. And and you know, all the sirens working and everything. And they brought us to a hotel, and I remember them interrogating my mother. And I was 5 years old, so I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I remember from that night. But obviously, you know, a lot has changed since then. I'm turning 21 next month, and yeah, that's about it.
All right. I know you visited your dad in prison several times, sometimes with me and Steve, and sometimes other times. And what do you remember about those prison visits? I remember one time you were a little kid and you jumped over the wall when we were supposed to go through the metal detector. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that, no. That sounds like something I would do, though.
Yeah, you were very active.
Yeah, I was crazy. Yeah, I mean, I remember we obviously didn't have a car or anything, so you know, whenever we went to visit my father, either you or Steve or one of the brothers from the masjid or from the mosque, you know, brought us down there and took the trip, because remember, my father was he was in Indiana for a while, in Terre Haute, Indiana. Then he was in Illinois, and the closest he ever was in Pennsylvania, which is still you know, 6 hours away from where we were. So yeah, I remember, you know, really we'd go there like once a year, and we obviously had no money either, so you know, whatever the cost of the trip was, all, you know, charity, whatever people gave us for charity. And yeah.
Do you remember the time when you went with the first time you went? You were pretty young. You and Salah and Steve went and got kicked out. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. At that time, I believe my father was in Indiana. He was in the CNU unit. So me, Steve, and my older brother Salah, we took an 18-hour drive down there. And when we get there, they obviously, you know, they search us, and we go through the metal detectors and to see if we have anything we're not, you know, to make sure that we don't bring anything into the prison that's not allowed. But we get past the metal detectors and we go into the room. We have to speak through this thick glass, where the glass is so thick that you can't even hear across the glass. They have a little phone there. You have to talk through the phone, and we have to talk one by one. And then probably around 20, 25 minutes through the visit, the guards come in, and because they noticed that Steve has a pen. And they came in and they shut a pen, like a pen. He was, because we had to take turns talking on the phone, so he wanted to write down whatever questions he had, so he wouldn't forget it when his turn came. And the guards noticed that he was writing things down, and they canceled the visit right on the spot. They came in and they told us we had to leave because he had a pen. And they let him enter the prison. They let him enter the visiting room with the pen and with the notebook. And yet when he started to use it, they kicked us out. You know, so that was an 18-hour trip down the drain. We had to go back. And I didn't see my father for a year after that.
Yeah, I know. For a while, you guys didn't even go to the CMU because it was too difficult to do the non-contact visits, to go all that way. Sometimes the visit, you'd get kicked out anyway, and then you just were able to talk to him over the phone. You couldn't even hug him. That's probably the worst thing about the CMUs.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get to Alaa again. Alaa, can you unmute, and we'll try this again with you?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's much better. Do you want to talk about how old you were when your dad was arrested and what it was like?
I was 8 years old when my dad was arrested, and I probably remember a bit more than Azzam, but same thing. Like, basically, we were woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Two ladies and my mom woke us up, and we went outside, and there was just at least 20 FBI officers with dogs, everything. We woke up in a hotel that morning. My mom hadn't slept. She was being interviewed all night. The ladies who were also with the FBI, they took us home, and our house was just destroyed. Every suitcase was open with pictures, clothes, everything thrown everywhere. I think cameras, cell phones were taken. I'm not sure what else. I'm sure a bunch of other stuff. My mom told us that my dad went on a trip because she didn't want to tell us what actually happened. And we were so mad at my father because he was supposed to take us to Great Escape that day. So we were so upset with him. But then, like right after the other reporters started coming to the house, and then just from listening to the reporters, we found out that my dad was in jail. And we just kept hearing the word terror, terrorism. I'm sure I didn't know what that meant at the time. I might have, but I think I didn't. We had a lot of support from our Muslim community. Everybody basically knew that something like this couldn't be true. Our neighbors, even the non-Muslim ones, knew that something like this couldn't be true. People were at our house nonstop for a few days. Some of our neighbors basically chased the reporters away, told my mom, go inside, don't talk to them. I think she thought that she had to talk to them. She didn't know that she couldn't. After 2 weeks, my dad was released on bail. On my birthday, the morning of my birthday, early in the morning, his bail was revoked. So that was in October. So he was out for like 2 months, and then they revoked his bail. Right, Baba? Or maybe it was
right around, yeah, right about that time, I remember, yeah.
And then, yeah, he was in jail. We all knew that he was innocent. We all knew that he would never do anything to support terrorism or support violence in any way. Our community also knew that, and a lot of the non-Muslim community also knew that, and we had really a strong support system from the non-Muslims in the Albany community, including you, Steve, the other Kathy, Lynn, Jean, all of you guys. People were out after my dad was convicted. People were out doing vigils every single night until he was sentenced, to ask the judge to have leniency, petitions.
If I may add,
Yeah.
I was young at the time of my father's arrest, but growing up, as I grew up, I realized the impact it had on our community. It truly, at the time, it truly destroyed the Muslim community in Albany, New York. Because the reality was, a lot of brothers were scared to come to the mosque after that. They were scared to meet up with one another. They were scared to protest on my father's behalf, because the reality is a lot of them received phone calls from the FBI, and brothers can attest to this. They received phone calls. Dr. Shamshad's son, actually, Sheikh Sajid, he received a phone call from the FBI after that, and they left him a voicemail and said, "You're next."
Wow.
So our neighbors,
were really scared.
The FBI tried to entrap some of our neighbors too, according to them. One of my neighbors said an FBI agent just came and like showed him a suitcase full of money and said, if you do this, we'll give you this money. And then
any brother who used to attend the mosque regularly, they were all intimidated by the FBI in one way or another.
Yes, that's all true. And I didn't even know about Sheikh Sajid being threatened like that. But I gotta say that they didn't back down. I mean, every family in that mosque I heard was visited by the FBI, but the FBI never was able to do another sting like that in Albany. Never got any of those people. They did those threats, but they were unsuccessful because the community came together. We had supportive media. We had a Muslim, non-Muslim alliance. We prevented them from doing any more stings. And although the attendance at the masjid may have gone down for a while out of fear, it bounced back. And now it's strong again. So, you know, the FBI lost out on that.
Yeah, and for that, we're forever grateful to the good-hearted people of Albany, New York, that realized what was happening was an injustice, and they refused to stay silent. Because at that time, where people of my background and people of my faith were scared, it was the non-Muslim people who came to our defense.
Well, and there were some Muslims who were there too, even despite the extra risk from them, such as, of course, Shamshad and his family, and Abdul Haq, some of the African American brothers, and some other people. So, and the Muslim community didn't abandon you guys like happened in a lot of communities, unfortunately. And they really helped take care of you guys growing up. I guess I wanted to ask both of you, Azzam and Alaa, like, what was the impact, if you can share something about of having this happen to you as a child and now being an adult? How do you think it affected you?
You want to go, Alaa?
It's a little difficult question, maybe.
I guess the main impact was the impact that it had personally, like first on our homes and on our lives growing up. Like, we went from a pretty normal, happy family to, I don't want to say a broken family, but kind of. Like, we didn't have our father and he was the bread maker. My mother became very scared, and I will say paranoid. She always thought that the FBI was watching us. She was scared of everything. She just wanted to go back home to Kurdistan. It was really, really difficult. There was a lot of times when we had literally nothing, like not even beds to sleep on, even in the winter time. But now I can confidently say everybody in our family is doing well, thank God, a million times over. And thank you to the wonderful Muslim and non-Muslim community that helped us through this. Like, we are all doing so well right now. We are all so grateful that my father is home and that my mother is back home with her mother and her family. My brother's in law school. I'm working on my master's. I actually did not complete my master's yet. I'm still working on it. But Azzam's finished with school. My sister's in high school. Everybody's doing well.
Yeah, your sister is a lot younger, right? Your sister Aya, she was
10 years
born after your dad was locked up. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
so
have her on someday.
This is the first time actually that she's living with my father. She was born while my father was in jail.
Yeah. Yeah, Azzam, do you want to say anything about how all this has affected you and in terms of who you are now, or how it's...
Well, in terms of who I am now, I don't think I would be the man I am today if it hasn't been for, the life that I lived growing up or the way I grew up. So in that sense, I try to look at it in a good light, and I try to see it in a good light, and think positive. But if we're speaking honestly, and if I'm being honest, it really destroyed our lives. It destroyed my mother's life. It destroyed our household. We were dirt poor. We had no income. Whatever we had was charity. But I don't like to focus on that. Now times are better. We're doing better. My sister got her master's degree recently. My brother's studying at Harvard Law School. I plan on going to college whenever the airport's open. So I don't like to dwell on the past too much. Things are over with, and for us, it has a happy ending. But for some others, there are some other people who are still in jail, like Dr. Zafar and Imam Jamil Al-Amin. So, you always got to think positive.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about everything you all went through, and I'm sorry. I want to say I'm sorry to your mom for not helping her get home sooner, because we wanted you guys to get your U.S. citizenship. Now she's home, and I'm glad she's doing better. And I gotta say, I'm so proud of all you. I still say kids, but you're adults now. I'm so proud of all of you. You're wonderful, wonderful people, despite everything you've been through, maybe partly because of it. I don't know. I guess we have some questions here in the chat. Let's see. Farouk from Birmingham says hi. Hi, Farouk. So Shirin Sinar says, thank you so much for sharing your story. Can you, and this may be mostly for Yassin, but it could be for the others too. Can you talk about what gave you resilience and hope during that 15-year ordeal? And do you have advice for others facing unjust trials and imprisonment? Yassin, do you want to try to answer that? Hope?
To be honest, many things it's helped me there, especially when I was in the isolation. I have no doubt in such places and time, believe in God, which has helped a lot, because as so many other people during a few months in the isolation, they came out with a lot of difficulties, some of them with some
Let's see, I'll give it a second and see if Yassin's internet comes back. And if not, we'll move to another question and come back to Yassin. So Jen Mirapol.
But I see myself there.
Wait, here we go. Yassin, okay.
You hear me?
Try again.
Okay. So
maybe not.
I will say the first thing which
all right, we'll come back to you in a minute, okay? This isn't, your internet's not working that great.
with me if I did not. Okay.
All right.
No, the sound is not
Yassin, we can't hear you. It's not working very well. Let me do one other question and then we'll try to come back to you. Jen Mirapol from the Rosenberg Foundation for Children asks to all panelists, are there other things that would have been helpful to your family during your trial, during the trial and imprisonment? Alaa or Azzam, do you want to take that first? And then hopefully we'll get Yassin again.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Rosenberg Fund for Children, they helped us tremendously. You know, anytime we went to visit our father, it was through their charity, I believe. And yeah, we're forever grateful to them. Without their help and without the help of the Muslim community, who used to give us charity regularly. Yeah, without their help, I mean, Lord knows what would have happened to us. Honestly, in terms of when in regards to that aspect of it, I think we were very lucky. You know, we had a Muslim community who had a great deal of respect for my father, and we had brothers who took us in and raised us as if we were their own children. So when it comes to that aspect, I have to say we're extremely lucky.
Alaa, do you want to add anything to that?
Was the question about Rosenberg's health?
Well, the question was, are there other things that would have been helpful to you and your family, that if people could have done other things, maybe looking at other families that could be helped in the future?
I think people honestly did whatever they could and helped as much as they could, and we are eternally grateful for that. It really wasn't in anybody's control at the end of the day. The FBI wanted to lock my father up and nothing was going to stop them. Steve and Kathy tried really hard to prevent that and to release him, and they couldn't, as hard as they tried. And as for us, we had so much help from the people around us. They were all wonderful, including the Rosenberg Fund themselves. Like Azzam said, they helped with the trips when we went to visit my father. They helped with books for school as well.
And the tuition, they paid the tuition for the An-Nur school for years.
Yeah, right.
That was great. Thanks, Jen. All right, let me try to see how Yassin's internet's doing now. Oh, no, we just lost Yassin. Let's see. Well, there's another general question. Hopefully we can get, oh wait, Yassin, are you back? Can you try again, unmute yourself and see if we can hear you, Yassin, and you can try to answer that question about what gave you hope? You got to unmute yourself first.
Do you
No?
Baba, press the red button on the bottom left that says unmute.
Yeah, there you go.
What about now?
Okay. Try.
Do you hear?
Yeah.
I will say three things. About if I have the doubt, because sometimes I say I lost my mind already, and some people here they they are telling me that I lost my mind. But if it is work, I will say because of three things. The first thing, no doubt, faith in that time and situation and place, it will help a lot. Somebody which is believe in God and believe somehow whatever he's going through, it was something came from God and something in his decree, and there was not too much to do about that, and he keep praying, and these things, it's help. It is true when they say, may the rich people and strong people think they don't need God, but really the poor and sick and needy people, they need God. So I needed God at that time, and I prayed, and I believe it has helped me very much. The second thing I will say, because of the support which is I got from the people like you, from the organization like Rosenberg, which is all these people came and aided me and my family. They wrote me a letter. They talked to me. They called me. They tried to visit me, and they showed the love and support and believe it in my case and believe it in my innocence. So this is no doubt, it has given me a lot of energy and give me a lot of hope. The third thing I say, it was my family, and I really did many things there, special the exercise, special the diet, and was trying very hard not die in the prison and came back to have sometimes with my family and come back to see my country. So these three things keep me going, which is I believe it in decree of God, and that was in my decree. There's no too much to do about it, and I saw this support and help from a lot of good and kind people like yourselves. And third was for my family. I still feel very bad for them. I have from the beginning, I have that idea that I will be the friend to my children, and I will live with them like the friend is, and then we have this big gap between us, and they waited all these years. And now I was always thinking, even if I go back, I'm an old and sick man, I will be another burden on their shoulders. Instead, if I go back and I try to have some energy and some time with them to make up for those days of the difficulty. And indeed it is, I tried everything to don't lose my mind and to don't lose my health and come back healthy and to have some time with my family.
Yeah, and I know you were always working out, playing soccer. Well, when you were in the CMU, you were playing handball, and then when you got in the general population, you were able to play soccer. And you're not an old sick man. You're, I think, as far as I can tell, you know, you're a lot younger than me, and you're such a good soccer player that they wouldn't let you play with the old guys in the prison. You had to play with the young guys. Let's see. Do Alaa or Azzam, do you want to say anything about what gave you kind of hope or resilience through those years, and what advice you have for other families going through this?
Well, what gave me hope really was, well, always, we put our trust in God first. But after that, what gave me hope was seeing the support of our community. That truly, it truly gave me a real kind of hope, that I can only imagine how life would have been if no one came to our support and no one realized the injustice and no one protested and no one wrote books and no articles. I can only imagine, the whole world thinking that your dad is a terrorist. It would just be horrible. So really, the support of our community and the love that we received, that really gave me all the hope.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Alaa, or is that pretty much?
I would pretty much reiterate what they both said. First is just having faith in God that maybe something good will come out of this and that this is for a reason and that God will reward you for the tough times. And secondly, the support of our family and friends and community. And lastly, just family, like just the thought of, if I'm not here to take care of my family, who will take care of them, who will be here for them? Of course, we had huge community support, but you always want to be there to help your family and be there for them.
Yeah.
So I would reiterate what they said, really.
Yeah, and that underscores the need for people not to be abandoned, especially family members. To oftentimes in these cases, family members are abandoned by their local Muslim community, kind of shunned by their old friends out of fear, you know, and this just shows how important it is not to do that, and how we need to come together to support people in these cases, and support the families and make them not feel so
Kathy,
isolated and terrorized.
Kathy, let me
Yes.
what's happening, indeed, that's the reason, because especially those immigrants which is lived in the East, and they grew up under the tyranny, which is there was never freedom and never Bill of Rights, and government can do whatever. So they have that mentality, even they living in the West and there's the law and there's the protection, but they are thinking the same way, which is they grow up. And unfortunately, before my arrest, when some Muslims which disappear from the community or stop coming to the mosque, or some other, they shave their beards. So I was always talking to the people and shouting in the mosque that they don't have to fear, because this is their right to come to pray and to practice their religion. And they are living in the country which is, there is the law and there's the protection and there's the Bill of Rights. So after what happened to me, these people, they wrote me, they say, look, what we told you. If it was like that, so how you got 15 years? And this has became another bad experience. And many other cases like mine in that country, which has made the people to fear and to scare. No, there's no protection. No, the law, it's not worked when it came to the Muslim have the beer and going to the mosque. No, the government there, they do some things which is should never happen in the free country and free land. So this is indeed, it is kind of affect the people in that way, which is many people, they lost the faith in the system.
Yes, indeed. I know you would say you have a right to say what you want. You have free speech, and people would tell you after 9/11, no, you don't. The government's going to come after you. And you didn't say anything bad. You were only saying good things, you know, but you were speaking out for Palestinian rights, and you were saying things against the war in Iraq, and you know, there wasn't really free speech for Muslims. And there is a—
Now I'm their lawyer defending them here.
Yeah, now you're defending America there. It's pretty amazing. There's a question sort of related to this. The question is, how do we think this narrative of Muslim as terrorists can be shifted? How can we change that idea? Do you have any thoughts about that? Anybody?
I believe the way the community start in Albany, which is just like they say, the people scared from unknown, and stranger always may hide something. So as much we break that wall, and as much there is the relation, there is the connection, there is the seeing each other, or even through some conference like this, talking to each other, then it became real. This is all, we are human beings. It's true, we believe in kind of difference, or we grow up in the different culture and background, or we live in the different environment, but by the end, human are human, and we are all the son of the same father and mother, and we came from the same way, and we have the same feeling and thoughts and problems and challenges wherever we live. So we all try to feed ourselves, save our families, and having better life and better future. So this naming and calling the names or dehumanizing the human being is something wrong. And most of the time, the politicians, they do for the politic and for some gain is in the election or any other thing is, but they do not think about the damage after that to the community, and the fear they create in the heart of the people, and the distrust which is they give to the people, and how that affects the life in the community. So I'm hoping that the people do try themselves and to find out, which is to reach out and to talk and to hear from the people, which is they are stranger, or they see them as a stranger, to find them out. They are just people, just they try to live normal life, if there's anything called normal life.
All right. Alaa or Azzam, do you want to add anything to that? Or
Yeah, I mean, no, I think he said it, man. I think you shouldn't just listen. You shouldn't just listen to what you hear on the news. I think you should try and find out the truth for yourself, and you'll find out that the vast majority of Muslims are just normal people. The vast majority of Muslims are just normal people with a different faith, and you know, we bleed the same, just like everyone else. You know.
all right, I agree with all that, but I also wanted to say we have to look at the role of the government, and I was thinking that, you know, since 9/11, the government had, the FBI in particular, had this idea that if there was a 1% chance that a Muslim in particular, because they weren't doing this to non-Muslims, if they thought there was a 1% chance that a Muslim might someday do something against the US, they had to go after them now, and they had to lock them up and falsely convict them and or deport them or do something like that. So it was like this idea that they don't care how much damage they did by that. They just were so afraid of another 9/11 that they were willing to sacrifice all these Muslims and their families and their communities just on the chance that one of these people might someday do something. And it reminds me a little bit of the attitude of the police when they, especially with Black people, when they come upon them in the street and they're so afraid that something might happen to them that they're gonna shoot them before, you know, asking any questions, or with very little risk to the police officer, they're gonna shoot just to make sure they go home that night. And it's because they care a lot more about their lives than the Black people's lives that are on the street. And it's like the same kind of mentality, this idea that all we care about is our own safety in this very limited sense, because it's not really safe that way, and that we're willing to sacrifice all these other people. And it's, you know, who are they sacrificing? Muslims, African Americans, you know. It's just, so it's not just people's attitude, it's the government and how they look at it. But
that's the point, which is things like this happening in this country or in the East, because we believe the government here is not by the people, it's not for the people, and there's not really freedom of anything. But something like this should not ever happen in your country or in the European, Western in general, because they're the government which is working for the people, and they are by the people and choose by the people. So they should act very in the very responsible way, and to think about any politic they follow, how that affected their people and the future of their people. But dividing the people community and, like I say, dehumanizing some people for some political benefit or for some election or for some policies to pass over the bills or something, without thinking about the damage that will create and how that destroyed the communities and put the fear and hatred in the heart of the people, and how that affected the future of even the children and new generation. Any government act responsibly and worry or think about the community, I believe should never do that and will never do that.
yeah.
I agree. And Kathy, you mentioned the 1% rule. My father used to actually mention it all the time. And he used to talk about, you know, how Dick Cheney and the 1% rule, if there's a 1% that he might be a terrorist, we have to go after them and go behalf or whatever. My father used to say, well, listen, if you're from the Middle East, that's 5% right there. If you're Muslim and you attend the mosque daily, that's another 10%. If you have a beer, that's another 10%. So he said, you know, we're all victims if that's the case. We're all subject, you know, to being targeted. And so I agree with you. We need systemic change, and we need to elect the right people into office to make sure that that change happens.
All right, we don't have a lot of time left, but I wanted to read a few of the comments and shout outs that we've gotten. on the chat. Jean Finley, who I mentioned, who's one of our, she's been doing this stuff since the 2006. She says, I just want to say hello to you all. So wonderful to see you. Sending you a whole lot of love. Hey, Jean. And
thank you, Jean.
Lynn also said, it's so nice to see you. These years were really hard. I'm so glad to see you're doing well. And I really hope one of these days soon to come visit in Kurdistan. Yeah, we were all set to visit. We had our tickets and everything for April. And of course it got canceled because of the pandemic. And I know you, Alaa, and you, Azzam, have both been stuck where you are because of that when you were trying to get on planes. So hopefully you'll be able to do that soon. Oh, there's one other question here that says, Yassin, have you considered finding funding to produce a documentary on your case, Netflix style, like T-Error? I don't know if you ever saw the T-Error one, but it's on Netflix, and that was a special case because it kind of was a sting. It was shooting an ongoing sting while the FBI was doing it. But have you thought about a documentary? I know you had somebody visiting you not too long ago, right before the pandemic, that was actually working on a film about your case. I'm not sure what's happening with that. Do you know anything about what's happening with that?
I think you know that person. While I
Yes.
was in the prison, he many times reached out and he tried to come to visit me to bring the camera and take some shots, but never they allow him to come with camera or even as the person just to visit me. So we exchanged emails for 2-3 years with that guy, Masood Haki. So after that, we cut off and I did not hear from him till my release. Then he found me on Facebook and then he sent me a message that he would like to come here and to take some photo so he can finish his documentary. And after that, he told me that he's waiting for my co-defender, Musharraf, to come out. So he's thinking and hoping that by the end of this year, the documentary will be ready and will be published in some net.
Okay, good. So hopefully he'll do that. He's an interesting guy. Yeah, we've been dealing with him on and off for years. Masood Haq, he is an ER doctor. So he spends his time, you know, working in the hospital a lot of time and saving money for his documentary projects. And he changed what he wanted to do with your case many times over the years. At one time he came to visit us and he had an actor with him who was playing you in it. I think you could play yourself at this point, but you know, and then he would run out of money.
How can somebody play mine?
Because you were in prison, you couldn't, you know, you couldn't be out on the street playing yourself. So, because he wanted to kind of reenact some of it. His plans changed over time, but I hope he will now be able to get that documentary finished. That would be wonderful. I guess I want to give each of you a chance to say like a couple of final thoughts if you want to. It's been really good talking to you all. Whoever wants to go first.
Oh, okay. All we can, I can say, which is again and again and again, I think my children all are experience that feeling, and we have that feeling from the bottom of our heart that we survived this because of your help and love and support. So we are forever grateful for that. And I beg you all, please keep reaching out to discover other side of the community until you find out by yourself, human are human, and Muslims, especially after the tragedy of 9/11 in your country, many of them became victims, many of them suffered, and many of them even start doubting about being treated like the real human being, like the full citizen, and like with the dignity and respect. So as more you reach out, that more that feeling it will go away, and that more normality, it will come to the community. And like we understood and we appreciate and we believe that your help, it is helped us and saved us. You can save many other peoples and help many other families. And I'm hoping you are continuous and doing that. Thank you very much all.
All right. Thank you. Alaa or Azzam, you want to say anything else at the end?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what he said. First of all, I express my utmost gratitude to all the people who supported, all the people who took the time out to actually read and actually try to educate themselves as to the reality of what's going on. You know, because they didn't have to do that. You know, they didn't have to take the, you know, they didn't have to take time out of their day to read that article or two, and you know, to say, there's something fishy here. You know, so I'm truly grateful to all of you, and I just want to once again say that we will never forget, you know, that Yassin Aref and Mohammed Hussein spent 15 years in prison wrongfully, but at the same time, we also can't forget the other people who are still behind bars wrongfully, you know, because there are a lot of others who are still wrongfully in prison right now as we speak. So, and Kathy, you know about these cases a lot better than I do. But I advise people to read and to research these topics and to educate themselves, because the reality is there's a lot of people being oppressed in America.
Thank you so much for saying that. We are trying to work on these other cases and bring the families together in our coalition. That's what we're all about. Alaa, you want to say anything else?
I also always want to thank everybody who supported us, and it really was a lot of people who supported us. So thank you to all of you. Cannot name you all, but you know who you are. And secondly, I think one of the questions was about how to change the narrative of Muslims as terrorists in the United States. And I would really say just get to know a Muslim. If you have any Muslim as your neighbor in your community, just get to know them. And I can almost guarantee you that your perception of Muslims will change for the better. Most of what we fear is what we don't know. And when we get to know it, our fear will go away. And I will say that the American Muslim community is really amazing. Generally ideal citizens, definitely not sympathetic to terrorists or anything like that, but rather like they're doctors, they're engineers, they're generally very well educated, they're generally just ideal citizens, and I'm sure that you will find a great friend in one if you look. And for refugees or immigrants and people who are coming from overseas, they could also really use a friend in you. They are probably at sometimes feeling alienated or nervous in their new home, in their new environment. And I think that by getting to know Muslims, we can build a bridge between the Muslim and non-Muslim community, and that really only good can come from it.
Yes, thank you. Yassin, the person who asked about the documentary says he wants George Clooney to play you. That was just another chapter comment. And in closing, I want to thank all of you. It's been such a gift getting to know you.
Wait, about George Clooney. Kathy, I believe George have a lot to do with the freedom of South Sudan. He worked on that case very hard. Tell him, somebody call him and tell him it's now to work on Kurdish freedom and Kurdish independence here.
All right, anybody out there know George Clooney?
Okay,
yes, he wants to talk to him.
Come here, George.
All right. Well, I just want to say,
I invitation for him to Kurdistan. Welcome, George, to Kurdistan.
Okay, maybe we'll go with him next year. But I just want to say that knowing all of you, and it's enriched my life and changed my life so much. So I'm super grateful to all of you, and we'll keep working on this stuff and try to get other people out. and hopefully we'll all get together in Kurdistan next year, with or without George.
You have no idea what you did to us.
You guys are all welcome. Whoever is watching, you guys can all join us.
A big
Thank you.
post-pandemic party in Sulaymaniyah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm going to sign off at this point.
Thank you.